Andy Johnson, Minnesota State University. We're looking at approaches to reading instruction, and this is the literature-based approach. We'll look at the others in subsequent videos. The purpose is to enjoy stories and writing and learn the skills in that context. In a literature-based approach, children's books become the basis for literature instruction instead of very expensive basals. And there are two basic approaches to the literature-based approach. The whole class can read the same book, multi-level, but then you have to create a scaffolded reading lesson so that students at varying levels can participate, or book clubs, 3 to 5 students in a group and each reading the same book. I just want to present you with an overview. I'm not going to give you all the specifics here because that would take about an hour and a half. But here, you create your own post-reading and pre-reading activities. Now, this is very empowering to many teachers because I know my students better than someone who's writing the basal manual. And I can use my own creativity and my knowledge of students to have creative writing, thinking, art, drama, oral communication, small group speeches, and other activities based on what is in the content of that book. And the goal really of these activities, pre and post, is for students to interact with the ideas found in the story and interact with each other. Bodies and bodies of research say social interaction is very important. It keeps students motivated and engaged. Just like you and I like to talk about movies we've seen with each other, children need to and want to talk about the books they read. The joy of doing a whole class book is that the class becomes the book. You have a common classroom discussion based around one book. And you can have science and social studies and writing and reading activities all based on that book. It becomes a form of thematic instruction. Sometimes we use the word a literature focus unit. Now, if I have students of varying levels, I need to have some sort of advanced organizer to prepare students to read. Just some very simple examples, adopt and adapt. You can show students kind of the structure of what is to be read, either the chapter or book, to give them some sort of scaffold for reading. Story maps or story grammar comes in a variety of ways. I would always tell you to adopt and adapt. Keep it simple. Here's another form of a story map. Now, an advanced organizer is anything that's shown in advance of the book or the lesson that gives students the general structure. It could be a graphic organizer like that, a story map, or it could be something verbal, just so you know. If I'm doing a literature-based approach, the whole class is reading the same book, I want to create some sort of schedule so I know about what day students are reading what chapter. Generally, you do a chapter a day, so you have them listed out, the chapters you're doing. You have pre and post reading activities designed for each day. This is a very basic overview, by the way, just so you know. All right, let's say you're all reading the same book. What do you do if a student finishes early? And teachers sometimes ask me, do you let students read ahead? If a student is excited and enthused and motivated, I hate to say, stop, don't read ahead. I usually let them read ahead. They're excited. That's good. That's okay. I have other books by the same author on hand, other books by the same subject or the same genre, or simply read good books. Now remember, it should be reading practice. You get better at reading by reading. Reading a good book is not something when you do when you get your work done. Reading is the work. Reading practice. Low ability readers. And you have to assume if the whole class is reading the same book, you have students 2 to 4 above, 2 to 4 below. You should have chapters on tape. Or there's lots of good programs like My Reader that has thousands of books where students can put a headset on. You want to have outliners, advanced organizers so that they can see the structure. Sometimes you have a chapter synopsis that allows students to get as much out of the chapter as they can. Now remember, the purpose for reading narrative texts is not to measure them, is to read and enjoy. You do not have to measure and document everything students do. There are places to measure and assess for comprehension, but you should not do it with everything they do, for goodness sakes. And instead of expensive workbooks that serve no real purpose, it's more effective to use a reading log or a journal instead of workbooks. And that's simply a notebook. And you want to use aesthetic response prompts to the greatest extent possible, and use your journals for discussion groups. Have them respond and come back to their small groups and they can share. Here's an example of a simple journal response. It doesn't take millions of dollars. These are simple ideas. Now, a journal becomes a dialogue journal when it becomes a discussion. Here the child is writing to the teacher and the teacher will respond, and you create this dialogue as it goes back and forth. Double journal entry, this is just another idea. They record something from the text and then their idea or what they were thinking about it. Double journal entry. And again, something from the text and their ideas. Simple idea, you don't need to be complicated. Rigor is different from complexity. The benefits, it reflects authentic literacy. Reading and writing for real experiences costs much, much, much less than these expensive basals and consumable workbooks. It gives you a variety of literature and things to read and flexibility. You can adopt and adapt. If you're studying the Civil War, you can find Civil War books. And it's lots more interested than the mush that you generally find in a basal reader. All right, I'm going to stop here and I'll show you some examples of pre- and post-reading activities that you can use in a minute.